From the very first moment she opened her eyes that morning, Princess Elara knew something inside her world had shifted. Something unseen, unnamed, but powerful enough to make the air in her chamber feel heavier than usual. The sun had risen in deep gold and crimson, casting long shadows across the marble floors as if the sky itself sensed the storm that was about to unfold in her life. She stood by the window, her heart pulled in two directions, one by duty, one by an ache she had never dared to acknowledge. On this day, the royal heralds would announce the final call for suitors, and by decree of the king, she would be engaged before the next full moon. Yet, deep in her chest, something whispered that fate had far more to show her than a carefully orchestrated royal match. Something darker, heavier, suspended in a quiet just before destiny speaks. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love written by destiny, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe before we continue this journey. Your support means the world. Princess Elara lived in the kingdom of Verdalia, a land of emerald forests, sky blue rivers, and ancient traditions that weighed on her like invisible chains. Elara was admired for her grace, yet she felt suffocated by the expectations placed upon her. Her mother, Queen Seraphine, had died when she was young, and all the kingdom's hopes had fallen onto her, shaping her into a symbol rather than a person. But Elara had always longed to be seen not as the royal heir, but as a woman with dreams, flaws, and feelings she had never voiced. She watched as noblemen from foreign lands arrived daily, parading their riches, their armies, their pedigrees, each one claiming the title of the best suitor. Yet none saw her heart, none saw the quiet sadness in her eyes. None cared to. Rumors spread through the palace that the king favored Prince Aldrich of Ravarin, a man known for strength, but also for ambition that bordered on hunger. He was tall, handsome in a hardened way, and carried himself like a man who expected the world to bend for him. His kingdom was powerful, his army unmatched. For the council, he was the perfect suitor. But when Elara looked at him, she felt nothing but a cold wind brushing past her heart. She had seen him stride into rooms, speaking over others, demanding attention, thriving in authority. She imagined a life with him, a life imprisoned behind expectations, a life where she would become a crown on his shelf rather than a partner in his heart. The days passed like scenes from a grand play she never volunteered to perform in. Gowns, banquets, forced smiles. Elara grew more anxious with every sunset, fearing the day the king would choose for her. She sought refuge in the gardens, where her mother once spent her evenings, tending roses that now bloomed as if they carried pieces of her spirit. And it was there, among jasmine-scented pathways and shimmering fountains, that she first noticed the gardener's apprentice. He was quiet, almost invisible to others. His name was Rowan Young, gentle-faced, with sun-touched skin and amber eyes that seemed to carry both innocence and unspoken stories. Elara had seen him only from afar before, but that evening she watched him kneel among the rose bushes, repairing broken stems with delicate hands, as though every fragile petal mattered. Something about the way he worked, patient, attentive, kind, drew her like a soft whisper of wind. She approached him cautiously, not wanting to startle him, and as she watched him care for the roses as though they were living memories, something warmed in her chest. He looked up at her only briefly, bowing his head, trying to slip back into invisibility, but she saw the gentleness in his expression, a gentleness she had never seen in the halls of power. She wondered how someone with nothing to gain could show more love to a flower than any suitor had shown her as a person. In the days that followed, Elara found herself wandering into the gardens more often, not by duty, but by a quiet pull she could no longer explain. Rowan never said much, but his presence wrapped her in calm warmth. He would hand her fallen petals, guide her fingers to where the roses needed trimming, teach her how to plant seeds. In those wordless moments, she felt more understood than she had in years. There were days she caught him watching her, not with hunger like other suitors, but with a look of genuine awe and tenderness, as if he saw her not as a princess, but as a human being, someone real, But love, especially the kind that blooms where it should not, is often tested by shadows. And the shadows struck soon. One morning, during a council meeting, Prince Aldrich announced that he wished to court Princess Elara formally. His voice thundered across the chamber, confident, expectant. The king and council reacted with applause, murmuring in approval. A date was set for a royal hunter ceremony where Aldrich would demonstrate his strength, and Elara would be announced as his intended. Elara felt her lungs tighten. That night, she fled to the gardens where the moonlight washed everything in silver. Rowan was there, repairing a broken water pot. When he looked at her, the panic in her eyes told him everything. She stood trembling, feeling like her life was no longer hers. He stepped closer, not daring to touch her, but offering a quiet presence that steadied her breath. In the soft, trembling silence, she realized her feelings for him had grown into something she could no longer ignore. But fate is rarely kind. Their secret connection did not go unnoticed. A court maid, seeking favor from Prince Aldrich, revealed that the princess often spent time with a lowly gardener's apprentice. Aldrich's pride burned hotter than fire. To him, love was irrelevant, what mattered was possession. And so, on the day of the royal hunt, while the kingdom celebrated, palace guards dragged Rowan before the throne. His hands were scratched with thorns, his clothes dusted with soil, yet his eyes held steady not out of defiance, but out of fear for Elara. The council demanded punishment. Aldrich stepped forward, his voice sharp, insisting that the boy be banished or imprisoned. He argued that a princess should never be stained by association with someone so low. The king, torn between tradition and the daughter he loved, hesitated. But before judgment was passed, Princess Elara burst into the chamber. Her pulse pounded like drumbeats of war. She stood before the throne, shielding Rowan with trembling determination. She confessed the truth of their bond, not romantic. She insisted, but meaningful. She spoke of how Rowan treated the gardens, the memories of her mother, and even the smallest petals, with more tenderness than any nobleman had ever treated her. She declared that a kingdom built on harshness and rank was weaker than a kingdom built on kindness and understanding. Her words hung in the air like a spell neither time nor tradition could break. Some were moved, others were outraged. Aldrich was livid. The king, seeing the desperation in his daughter's eyes, made a decision that shocked the palace. Rowan would not be punished. Instead, he would undergo a test of virtue, a centuries-old challenge given to those who sought to rise in the court. 3 trials: courage, wisdom, and heart. If he succeeded, he would earn a place not as a noble, but as someone worthy of respect and consideration. Aldrich mocked him, certain the boy would fail. But Rowan did not waver, not because he sought a title, but because he wanted to protect the princess who had protected him. The trials began at dawn. In the trial of courage, Rowan faced the wildwood beast, a creature that had frightened even seasoned knights. He entered the forest armed with nothing but a torch. Hours later, he returned with the creature not slain, but safely guided back to its natural habitat. He whispered to the council that the beast had been injured and afraid, and harming it would not prove courage, compassion would. The trial of wisdom tested him with puzzles meant for scholars. Rowan studied shapes, symbols, and star patterns. At first he struggled, but then he remembered Elara's teachings in the garden about cycles of nature, balance, and timing. Using what she taught him, he solved the puzzles, humbling the scholars who doubted him. The final trial of heart was the hardest. Rowan was shown illusions of gold, crowns, lands, and luxury. The council tested whether greed would corrupt him, but Rowan walked past every treasure without hesitation. When asked what he truly desired, he simply bowed his head and said he wished to serve in the palace gardens, where peace lived. That answer left the council stunned, for they expected ambition, not simplicity. When all trials ended, the entire kingdom waited. The council announced that Rowan had passed every test, not only passed, but done so with remarkable humility. Prince Aldrich, consumed by fury, challenged Rowan to a duel to prove he was unfit. But Rowan refused. stating that violence was not the measure of a good man. Aldrich, blinded by rage, attacked him anyway. Before steel could strike flesh, the king commanded the guards to seize Aldrich. In that moment, the king saw Aldrich for what he truly was: power hungry, prideful, and dangerous. Aldrich was expelled from the kingdom. Rowan, though shaken, stood tall, and when the king looked upon him, this young man who showed kindness over cruelty, humility over pride, wisdom over bravado, he finally understood why his daughter's heart had found its refuge in him. In a gathering that evening beneath lantern-lit skies, the king made a declaration that would be remembered for generations. The best suitor, he said, was not the one with riches or armies, not the one born of royal blood or boasting strength. The best suitor was the one who held a heart capable of seeing the worth in others. And therefore he granted Rowan a place not just in the palace, but beside Princess Elara if her heart so wished. Elara stepped forward, tears glistening like stars. She chose Rowan not out of rebellion, but out of love rooted in kindness, trust, and the quiet understanding they had built beneath the blooming rose arches. Their love story became a legend because it was not about a prince rescuing a princess or a kingdom bowing to tradition. It was a story about two souls who saw each other clearly when the world expected them not to. A story of courage, quiet strength, and hearts that chose love over titles. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. Before you go, please comment below. True love chooses kindness.